Many classic bands from different genres have called it quits already. Some of these bands want to run it into the ground, and others bow out while they're still on a good note. But a lot can happen even while a band is still kicking. Members can die or leave the group, images can change, songs may be permanently ejected from the setlist, and there's also the possibility of the band not returning for a long time, if ever. Here I'm going to examine different ways a concert can be taken lightly, and reasons why you might want to take it more seriously. First, there's the case of bands that don't tour often. Say they're an overseas band, or really underground and can't afford to tour. Touring costs a lot of money. Bands will only do it if they predict they won't lose any money. But breaking even isn't enough. That's time off work for some of them, and they have to be paid enough to make it worth the trip. Or maybe they're a band that are big, but purposefully don't tour often. The idea is that if they don't tour often, it'll be a special event when they do. Bothrower was a fine example. They may have only played a few dates out of the year, but when they did, everyone had to go. Not to mention it was the only time you could buy official Bothrower merch, but that's another valuable point. The tour merch can be valuable somewhere down the road. There might be tours where bands will play an album in its entirety, or they'll celebrate a classic album by playing songs from it that they haven't played in years. That's something you're going to remember when you see it. Gwar is a band where there are storylines between the songs. There's a different storyline and setlist with each tour, so in a way it's a new experience each time. Different celebrities are murdered, different characters participate, and the set designs change. It's worth it to see Gwar a bunch of times just to see what they do next. You can also take for granted how often a band tours. I've seen Obituary a bunch of times, but there have been a couple tours where I skipped seeing them because I didn't like the other bands on the roster. I knew there would be more chances to see Obituary, and let's face it, while hearing them close with Slowly We Rot is fun, after you've seen them do it a few times, the surprise element is gone. There isn't an urgent need to see them played again. But it's Obituary, so you wouldn't not want to see it either. Bob Dylan famously started his never-ending tour partly to do unfamiliar things, though in a different way than Gwar. One reason is because he didn't want to become a stadium-selling greatest hits parody of himself. Another part is so that he could reinvent and reinterpret his classic songs and to play songs that aren't hits. Some of these reinterpretations of songs, and shows in general, have been downright awful. But some of it has been a way for him to reconnect with songs he hasn't felt the same about since when he first wrote them. Sometimes it would hit the ears in a way the audience could appreciate. In a way you can take for granted all that Bob's done as an artist. On the other hand, there have been instances where fans have been glad they didn't go, or wished they could say so. The best way to support any band you like is to buy their music, their merch, their concert tickets. People on the internet whine if a band isn't playing 10 minutes away from their house, but you gotta remember that a band is only gonna go where they think they're going to sell tickets. So if Ministry stopped somewhere and only 10 people showed up, you can bet they're not gonna come back. It's up to the fans to keep the spirit of the music alive. That means that if you want these bands to show up, show them you want them to show up by being there yourself. Otis Urungus once said in an interview, people may complain that we're not playing close to them, but we're going all this way far from home to see them, so they have to meet us halfway. It should be a pilgrimage to see Gwar. Take a look at Watain, a completely harmless show with no incidents, no violence, and yet because of their anti-Christian stuff, they've been banned from playing a lot of gigs. Many of these gigs are in countries where religion rules the land, and wouldn't it just be so horrible to have a different background or belief system than everyone else? Famously, there was the canceled gig in Singapore where the community petitioned the cancellation. Meanwhile, in the United States, there are the social justice idiots who've protested and sent bomb threats to venues who've booked black metal bands. So if you have the chance to see Watain or any band like them, consider yourself one of the lucky ones, because a lot of people don't have that luxury. This goes back to showing the bands that despite the cancellations and hardships, you want them to show up. You also never know when it could be your last chance to see a band. I saw Nine Inch Nails in 2014 with Soundgarden and Dillinger Escape Plan supporting. Great show, everybody killed it, but unbeknownst to everybody, both Dillinger and Soundgarden would both end within a couple years. In 2013, Tony Iommi's lymphoma was a cause for alarm. It was like, uh-oh, we better see Sabbath now while we still can because there might not be another tour. The show itself was fun. The problem was that the audience wasn't really participating. Ozzy would try to get everyone to wave, sing along, whatever, and half the audience had their arms crossed standing still. Or recording the thing with their phones. Seriously, this isn't some fad pop group you took your kids to see, this is Black Sabbath. It might be your last chance to see them. Some older folk have outgrown the whole concert thing, but they may still have one or two bands they'll make an event out of each time they come around. The time it takes to leave the crowded parking lot may suck, but for that one band, they're willing to stick it out. With sometimes high ticket prices, you have to be selective. So what's the big takeaway from considering all of this? Enjoy your favorite bands while you still can. Everyone gets old and can't keep doing it forever. There are plenty of great iconic bands we'll never be able to see again. If you know what you're going to get each time you see a band, maybe it's not so urgent. But if you don't know, then go and have fun, because it's all about the memories. Grind on.